Hello, welcome back. Thank you for joining me here. We're going to have a rather frank conversation today about guilt and our attraction to guilt as a shiny object that we both love and hate, yet we're drawn to it, magnetized, and just can't get enough. Yet we want to be done with it once and for all, yet we keep going back over and over, expecting a different result. So we appear to find ourselves here when we identify as individual human beings with all of the labels that we hang on ourselves: man, woman, child, nationality, ethnic group, political affiliation, career choice, income bracket, social status and prestige, the type of car we drive, the kind of food we like to eat. Label, 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 label. When we identify as an individual, we see everyone else as well. Exactly that. Everyone else. Separate. Separate from us. We're all apparently separate from each other and separate from God. And then we say things like, how could he do this to us? I'm a good person. How could he create this suffering? Oh, he did not. Not at all. You may have been raised to believe otherwise. I certainly was. If you're not familiar with some of the backstory from my own experience in this lifetime, I was raised in not one, but two fundamentalist Christian traditions in the United States. So that may or may not speak to your experience, but there are plenty of people in this world that are drawn to A Course in Miracles that, in fact, come from this Judeo Christian background. And they have found, a lot of them anyway, some of the practice of these traditions rather lacking and rather judgmental. So perhaps that speaks to your experience. And if it doesn't, no problem. This course is universal. And what it all boils down to is that it is a self-study curriculum. So if you're new or newer to this thread of discussions, welcome. You're probably guessing that I'm about to say you're not an individual human being. Of course not. You know this to be true. That's why you're here. Something has called you, and that something is part of our mind. It's our inner teacher who speaks to us in many ways. It's known as the Holy Spirit here in A Course in Miracles, and you may call it whatever you wish. It is not a foreign power. It is not an external power. There is nothing external to you. Our inner teacher is a term that I often use on these videos because I wish very much to emphasize inner. So when we call on the Holy Spirit for guidance, we're not giving our power away. Rather, we're accessing it. We're appealing to this part of our mind that can see right through all of the illusions and all of the drama that we have fashioned and wrought here on this spinning ball of rock, which we, again, mistakenly believe to be home sweet home. You are not a body. You do know this deep down. To hear it spoken may or may not resonate. And whatever it is for you. You could choose to reject these ideas completely. And you're still watching. Your inner teacher always has a message for you. The question, and this applies to each and every one of us, is are we listening right now, today? The call to awaken goes out to each and every one of us without exception, 24/7, 365. Always. Are we listening? When we identify as an individual, as a self sustaining survival unit, as a human being running amok, doing life here in the world, we enter into one relationship after another, and they're all characterized by guilt. If we identify as an individual, we enter into what the Course refers to as special relationships, exclusive relationships, to try to get something from somebody. A special relationship is one that could be between two people, like a marriage or a domestic partnership, or it could be amidst a group of people as well. It's exclusive. That's one of the defining characteristics of it, is that others are shut out. So in this special relationship, we give special love or special hatred. It's exactly the same thing because we're singling out, separating, singling out someone or a group of people for special treatment somehow, whether it's loving or vindictive, hateful, and wrong. It's the same thing. We're drawing a separation where none exists, and we're making it real in our mind by cherishing it. In this special relationship, this is the relationship that the ego enters into always. We feel guilty. We feel that in this relationship where we try to get something from somebody, that we're harming them and feel guilty, or we feel like we've given so much that we've sacrificed in this relationship. So we feel bitter and resentful at the other person to whom we've given so much and perhaps not received a single thing in return, or as we deem it, not enough in return. It's not reciprocal. So I feel bitter and resentful and guilty. And it is this relationship that the ego continues to foster. So, what do we do? Well, we become dissatisfied with these special relationships and we end them. It could be a marriage, it could be a domestic partner, it could be a job. So, this takes many forms and many iterations in our lives. We just look for something else or someone else, another situation. And then we rush headlong into that situation, looking for the peace of God in a relationship that excludes. What's wrong with this picture? We continue to seek the peace of God, which is what we all want deep down in stuff, in individualized, special relationships, in work. We look for it always, always out there in someone else, in something else, in a different situation, in a different town, in a different city, things like that. We rush around looking for the answers out there. That is a mistake. A simple mistake. We're not horrible for having done this. In fact, we're conditioned to do just this. So, yes, spiritual practice involves giving yourself some forgiving, loving grace. As you forgive the Son of God, do not neglect to forgive yourself too. Please. Thank you. It's really important. You're the dreamer, after all. So, this is the situation as we appear to find it. We're seeking the peace of God outside of us, and there is nothing outside of us. It is an inside job. So, when any spiritual tradition, not just A Course in Miracles, but any of them, insist that we must look within, yeah, yes, that is where the answers are. That is where the answer with a capital A is. Holy Spirit, answer. You are what you're looking for, and you know this. Again, you may resist this with everything you appear to have. You'll come back to this idea, and maybe not in this lifetime either. I mean, if you want to prove this pixelated image on your screen wrong and go off and wallow in guilt, that's totally your choice. I mean, really. You will have found often, I'm sure, that spirituality involves deep honesty with ourselves. Because in order to awaken, we discover something that this course repeats a lot, that we must bring all of our darkness to the light. We must bring all of our illusions to truth. Truth shines them away, like turning on a light in a dark room. We supply the willingness to bring it to the light. And if you haven't started doing that, I invite you to try it and see what happens. Don't take it from me. This is a pixelated image on your screen. It's an assemblage of dots. It appears to be a middle aged man from Arizona. It could appear to be anything or anyone else, and the message would still get through because it's coming from your inner teacher. Who else? When something lands, bet it's him. You can count on that. So we're invited and encouraged, instructed, guided to give all of our experience over to our inner teacher. Let him guide you. Seriously, try it. It is in direct application, moment to moment, day to day, moment to moment application, and doing the course that we learn. It is in practical application that we learn the best. Why? Our experience demonstrates to us. Our experience shows us, proves to us that the ideas that we're looking at here in this course are true. We learn viscerally gut level. We learn experientially. That's the best way. I mean, it's one thing to agree with a pixelated image on your screen or words in print that Jesus dictated to a PhD medical psychologist in the 1960s and 1970s in New York City. It's one thing to think, okay, well, that sounds really good. It's another thing entirely to put it into practice. Spirituality, regardless of the tradition, is all about practical application. Again, something that we're all well aware of. So the ego has you enter into one special relationship after another, seeking the peace of God out there, and keeps you bound to guilt. As you seek one special relationship after another, we tend to view these, in fact, we automatically view them as transactional, where we're attempting to get or extract something from someone about which we feel guilty. When someone doesn't give us what we want, then we loathe them and hate them. They hate us, and vice versa. Everybody's dissatisfied, and the relationship ends. And we go through this ad nauseum. Are you sick of it? I mean, really, this is a question that only you can answer. And because you're watching this, I know that the answer is yes. Or you wouldn't be interested in this. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of other content out there. There are many ways to put that with different nouns for content. You see where I'm going with that. You could be anywhere else. And it's very, very important and very, very significant that you're here. Really. I hope you appreciate that. I do. I would like you to as well. Please. Thank you. The ego just has us doing our thing, hooking up with one body after another. It doesn't have to be in an intimate relationship, by the way. It's body coming together with a body. It could be a work arrangement. Yes, the intimate personal love relationship between exactly two people is the one that most pops into mind. But the point here is the ego wants you to believe that you're an individual human body, self sustaining survival unit, precious individual, separate from other individuals, and keep recycling your guilt. That's what it wants for you is guilt, 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 and more guilt, which makes you feel bad, 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 and worse. Always, inevitably. And the ego just wants you to feel guilty, and it views relationships as the coming together of bodies. It sees you as a body, and it ignores the mind completely. Mind is of no consequence to the ego at all. It erroneously, very erroneously, believes that the mind is private. Not even. It is shared. There is one mind. Perhaps you weren't taught that growing up. I certainly was not, yet I knew it. Something in me always knew. And perhaps you've had that experience, or perhaps you're having it right now, where these ideas, as presented here in A Course in Miracles, somehow make sense on a level that you just can't pinpoint. Common experience. You've always known. You know that you've always known. Welcome. There are no private thoughts. We try to make thoughts private, and they're the ones that we don't want to bring to light because what we wish to keep private is often very judgmental, isn't it? Hateful. It's these thoughts that we bring to the Holy Spirit. We forgive the object of those thoughts. People, things, events, ourselves. Forgive, 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 forgive. The practical centerpiece of A Course in Miracles. True forgiveness of yourself, the Son of God, everyone and everything, the world itself, space, time, and the ego. Forgive that. It's nothing. Forgiveness does not mean that you just let people keep doing bad things. If you're in a dangerous situation, you must get out of that dangerous situation. Forgiveness is the way that we correct our perception. We don't see things as they are. We see 8 billion plus individual self sustaining survival units competing for what we deem to be scarce and limited resources on a spinning ball of rock that itself has limits. Well, there are no limits. The Son of God is completely limitless. No limits. Perhaps you've experienced this limitlessness. Perhaps you have. Once you have, there's no going back, is there? Yeah. We wouldn't want to go back anyway, because we discover that it's not worthy of us. And the ego would just have you ignore the mind completely, thinking it's private. It's not private. There are no private thoughts. The mind is shared. The mind, one, is shared. Remember, there is no individuality. There are no separate others. So, of course, it's shared. So, when one apparent individual changes his or her mind, then, well, it has a ripple effect on all of the other apparent individuals because mind is shared. So, what impact would you have? You could certainly characterize it that way. So, as we identify as an ego, we find guilt attractive. When we begin to disidentify with the ego and set it aside, guilt no longer draws us in and attracts us. We rather see more. The more we bring our illusions to truth, the more we bring our darkness to light, the more the light shines them away, and the less guilt we see in our experience. You may find this on the path where something that once really troubled you no longer troubles you at all. It is nothing. Those are very useful experiences on the spiritual path because they show us that it's working, that we can and should keep going. And the more you set the ego aside, the more you're going to want to keep going. So, wherever on this path you appear to find yourself, it is of great importance that you're here paying attention to your inner teacher. That's really, really critical, and we just can't possibly stress that enough. Because we do all of our forgiveness work here in the world under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. He tells us what to do, it tells us what to do, what to say in our mind, to whom, in what situations, and we simply relax and trust and do it. The more you do, the, well, lighter things become. So I hope that you join me on this path. With that said, questions will invariably come up. I mean, it's inevitable. Spirituality is a process of deep self inquiry anyway. So, to the extent that questions about A Course in Miracles or spirituality in general arise for you, I do want to invite you to ask them. This is a perfect place to do so right here in the comment thread on YouTube. So, please ask questions if you have them. And if you have not yet subscribed, I'd like to have you do that too, please. This is the prompt here in the corner of your screen. Click that, hover over that, subscribe and join us. It's an international community. Literally, people are here from all over the world. And it's one of the beauties of using the internet, our modern technology, is that we can reach each other and have these really, really deep, loving conversations wherever you happen to find yourself. So subscribe if you have not yet and join us. Several videos appear each week. And again, I just can't possibly state often enough how important it is that you've taken this time out of your wild, crazy, and busy day to listen to your inner teacher. Well, let's do what he suggests we do. And I'll see you back here next time. All right. Thank you for joining me.